This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. I'm Sophie Ikenye. Our top stories. A pivotal moment for sport. South African runner Caster Semenya loses a landmark case against athletics governing body as testosterone levels are restricted. The United Nations delivers desperately needed aid to one of the worst affected regions in Mozambique as the death toll from Cyclone Kenneth rises to 41. Also in the program, practicing or just preaching? With high unemployment in South Africa, politicians dangle job creation to woo voters. We will be hearing what the youth think. And in sports, could Liverpool's African trio lead them to victory over Barcelona in the Camp Nou? Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. A historic day for sport. Double Olympic champion Caster Semenya has had her appeal to stop rules limiting testosterone in female athletes dismissed. Now she and other athletes with differences of sexual development must either take medication in order to compete in some events or change events. Now, she'd said she wanted to, quote-unquote, run naturally the way I was born. Now, judges took more than 2 months to come to a decision. Here is Richard Conway.
Caster Semenya has controlled 800-metre running over the past decade like no one else. But that dominance is now in doubt following this landmark verdict. Athletics world governing body, the IAAF, believes women with what is known as differences in sexual development, or DSD as it's also known, hold an unfair advantage over their competitors.
Hello, Ms. Semenya, how are you?
Caster Semenya argued she simply has a genetic gift, was born and raised a woman, and shouldn't be discriminated against. However, the court disagreed.
The panel found that the DSD regulations are discriminatory, but the majority of the panel found that on the basis of the evidence submitted by the parties in the procedure, such discrimination is a necessary, reasonable and proportionate means of achieving the IAAF's objective of preserving the integrity of female athletics.
The hormones, genes and reproductive organs of women with DSD may often be a mix of male and female characteristics. The science and the impact of testosterone on performance was a key factor in the case.
She has a condition which may lead to her to have slightly higher testosterone levels than the average female. Now, lots of women have conditions like this, and there are various conditions that might lead to someone having high testosterone levels. The crux of this argument is whether those high testosterone levels that occur naturally in women confer the same advantage that they would if it was man versus woman, where we see about a 10 to 12% difference.
Athletics chiefs fear that if left unchecked, DSD athletes could dominate the sport, pointing to over 100 records that have already been set at national, continental and world level.
The core value for the IAAF is the empowerment of girls and women through athletics. The regulations that we are introducing are there to protect the sanctity of fair and open competition.
Meanwhile, the woman at the centre of this case was left initially bemused before issuing a defiant statement saying, "For a decade the IAAF has tried to slow me down, but this has actually made me stronger. The decision of the CAS will not hold me back. I will once again rise above and continue to inspire young women and athletes in South Africa and around the world." Caster Semenya now faces a crucial decision. If she is to defend her world title, she must start taking the necessary medication next week. However, she may yet opt to run a longer distance not subject to the new regulations. The IAAF, meanwhile, has welcomed the decision, but given a split verdict and the highly contentious nature of the decision, the issue looks like it will run on for some time. Richard Conway, BBC News.
Well, our sports reporter Ade Adedoyin spoke to me a little earlier about the court's decision and the impact it will have on female athletics.
She has to make a decision about her career going forward. If she wants to defend her world title in Doha at this year's World Championships, then because of this ruling in favour of the IAAF, then she will have to start taking medication to lower her testosterone levels below 5 nanomoles per litre. The other option, of course, is that she competes in an event which isn't affected by this regulation, like the 5,000 metres, for example. She won that at the National Championships here last weekend. The question you have to ask, of course, is that Caster Semenya is essentially an 800-metre runner. Yes, she did win a medal in the 1,500 metres in London at the World Championships as well, but her speciality is the 800 metres. And can she really be competitive with the top 5,000-metre runners in the world? So she's in a difficult position. Her legal team said they are considering a legal challenge. To do that, she can go to the Swiss tribunal, and but it have to argue on procedural issues, and I have to say the success rate for that is quite low. Or she could take it to a human rights court, but that takes an awful long time to reach a resolution. It could take up to 10 years, by which point her career will be pretty much over. So decisions to make going forward for Caster Semenya.
But this appeal was brought by Caster and the Athletics South Africa. But is she the only one that the ruling could impact?
This ruling will affect any female athlete who has naturally elevated levels of testosterone. She's not the only one with this condition. There is an athlete from Burundi, Francine Niyonsaba, and there's been a lot of speculation about her in recent years. She gave an interview in the last week where she suggested that she also has this condition, so it would impact on her. She's an Olympic silver medalist as well, so a decision that she will have to make going forward as well. And the wider ramification of all this is that other sports would have been watching this very closely, including the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, because it will impact on the decisions they make as far as rules concerning athletes with naturally elevated levels of testosterone.
Well, we've seen some varying reactions to this ruling. Which ones stuck out for you?
There's been very strong reaction here in South Africa for Caster Semenya. She's a national treasure here, of course. The African National Congress have said that they've called this decision awful. The Ministry of Sport say they're very disappointed. They say this is not just a blow to human rights, it's a blow to all South Africa, and they will consider a legal challenge. Caster Semenya herself has put out quite a strong statement saying that she feels that she's been targeted by the IAAF with these regulations for the past decade. And she says that this ruling by CAS won't slow her down, it'll only make her stronger. And she says that she hopes to continue to inspire people in South Africa and around the world as well. And support, not just from South Africa. Martina Navratilova, former tennis star, has said that, you know, it's awful that Caster Semenya will have to take medication if she's to continue her career. So I think there's a lot of sympathy for Caster Semenya in terms of the situation that she faces now. But the IAAF, Athletics World Governing Body, have always maintained that this is not to target her specifically. It's about protecting the integrity of women's sport.
Adedoyin there. Well, Katrina Karkaisis is an anthropologist and author of Testosterone, an unauthorized biography. She explained why she does not agree with the court's decision to reject the athlete's appeal.
It's a disappointing decision in that it endorses discrimination against women in sport and allows sports governing bodies to require medically unnecessary interventions for women to continue to compete in the category they've always competed in. So this neither protects nor benefits women's sport. And so that part is very hard. What is heartening is that it was a split decision, and I haven't seen many news outlets yet capture that, which means it wasn't unanimous. There was one arbitrator at least who, well, one at least who felt that she should win her appeal.
Well, let's take a quick look now at other stories making headlines across Africa. The African Union has given Sudan's military rulers another 60 days to hand over power to a civilian authority or face suspension after an earlier deadline was missed. In a statement, the AU Peace and Security Council said it noted with deep regret that the military had not stepped aside and handed power to civilians within a 15-day period set last month. The judges in The Hague have ruled that a case brought by a group of Nigerian widows who accuse the oil giant Shell of complicity in their husbands' deaths can continue, rejecting Shell's request to have the lawsuit dismissed. Now, among the protesters who was executed by the Nigerian military regime was the famous playwright Ken Saro-Wiwa. The Anglo-Dutch Corporation has denied any wrongdoing. The Tanzania government will not extend maternity leave limits. The Citizen newspaper has reported that Deputy Health Minister told Parliament that mothers who give birth to one baby will continue to receive 84 days of maternity leave, while those with twins will get 100 days. Now, the United Nations has flown in its first consignment of food aid to one of the worst affected regions in Mozambique following Cyclone Kenneth. The island of Ibo has seen nearly all the houses destroyed. Focus on Africa's Lebo Diseko was there and sent this report.
The floodwater has gone and now the damage is clear. What looked like matchsticks in the sand just days ago were people's houses. Whole villages have been destroyed. We saw stretches and stretches like this all across this island. We flew in on one of the only flights to reach Ibo in days. Torrential rain has meant it's been cut off. The airport terminal isn't much, just enough to cover the boxes of aid that have been brought in. The government is sensitive about journalists being here. There are around 2,000 people who came here for safety from the north of the country because of attacks by Islamist extremists. They lost their homes. Now once again, they have no place to stay.
A situação, as pessoas até estão a roubar zinco de outras pessoas.
People are stealing corrugated iron to build houses where they can shelter. Some don't know where to go at night. They stay in schools and in the morning they leave. Because of the conflict that hit the area of Mosomoko, people came here. Neither them or the natives are in good shape.
Porque aquela guerra que houve naquelas localidades aí de Mosemuco, não sei, que as pessoas vieram para aqui.
90% of houses on this island were made from wood. They, along with many of the trees, were torn from the ground by Cyclone Kenneth. In the midst of this, people try and look after what is left of their belongings. This was someone's home. You can see a door just strewn there, a whole wall that's come down. There are people here that are slowly trying to rebuild what they have, try and make a life again. We saw people sort of putting the bits of their houses back together. But they're telling us that they're really struggling for food. It's been difficult, as I said, for aid to get in, and it is a really desperate situation. Further in, what looks like a deserted town. The impact of the wind and rain clear to see. The hospital is one of the few sturdier buildings, but even its walls couldn't keep the wind and rain out. Back in Pemba, more flights are loading up, ready to deliver aid. They'll keep going as long as the weather allows and as long as they have the supplies. Lebo Diseko, BBC News, Pemba, Mozambique.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Still to come, why has Tanzania coach Emmanuel Amuneke included this 15-year-old in his provisional Nations Cup squad? Find out in sports. I'm Sophie Ikenya and you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The top stories on this program: a pivotal moment for sport. South African runner Caster Semenya loses a landmark case against athletics governing body as testosterone levels are restricted. The United Nations delivers desperately needed aid to one of the worst affected regions in Mozambique as the death toll from Cyclone Kenneth rises to 41. Well, with less than a week to elections in South Africa, here on Focus on Africa, we'll be looking at the big issues that people say need to be addressed. Unemployment is one of them. The BBC's Vumani Mkhize sent this report.
So this is the story of my life, Monday to Monday. Open up at 7 every morning and close at 7 in the evenings.
After losing his job 3 years ago, Dennis Zondi fell on hard times, but instead of letting it get him down, he opened a small shop selling quarters, a township takeaway. There are more than 6 million unemployed people in South Africa. The jobless rate is a staggering 27%. According to the IMF, the economy is only set to grow at 1.2% this year. That's well below the rate needed to create jobs for people like Dennis and his friends. But will next week's election make any difference?
Each time I vote, I'm just making another person richer because they're all like, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't see any changes. Yeah. Especially, I mean, I'm talking in
your personal experience.
It's individual. Yeah, for sure.
So, Dennis?
But bearing in mind what you just said, do you realize that if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain in South Africa? You must not complain. If you've not voted, then you can't complain and say taxes going up.
It's one and the same thing. Complaining or not complaining, nothing changes.
Those who are hoping for change are young people. At 54%, South Africa has the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. At the forefront of this battle against unemployment is Harambee, an NGO that finds job opportunities for young people nationwide.
1 in 2 young people are unemployed. So an organization like Harambee and other organizations that are working with young people play a very critical role in helping youth not only access those opportunities, but also help them to think about what are the other opportunities outside of the formal sector that they can engage in to help them earn an income and grow their own employability.
Almost every election poster around the country highlights the need for jobs. But are these just empty slogans? Are political parties providing tangible solutions to South Africa's massive unemployment problem? For economist Busisiwe Radebe, sloganeering needs to be coupled with action.
People will say different things when it comes to elections, but we want them to do certain things in South Africa. So we need them to sort of go out there and say, this is what we're doing to bring about policy certainty so that people can have businesses in South Africa. This is what we do when it comes to special economic zones. We're telling people that want to employ South Africans that, you know what, you can employ South Africans, we'll give you these type of incentives. So we need practical things out there.
According to the National Development Plan, 90% of new jobs by 2030 will be created by small businesses. For people like Dennis, that's where the opportunity lies. One day, he hopes to open his own restaurant. Vumani Mkhize, BBC News, Johannesburg.
Well, let's go straight to Johannesburg because Ferdinand Omondi is standing by for us. Ferdinand, we've heard there about the issue of unemployment in South Africa, but I wonder how serious is it and what are the main political parties offering in terms of solutions?
How serious is it? There are so many young South African voters who are unemployed who say they have no business voting because they do not trust these politicians anymore. And this is a narrative I picked from the northwest up there in Mahikeng, close to the Botswana border, up to down here in Johannesburg. So we do have a particular section of youth who don't really think that their promise will be delivered. They have university degrees and they are doing menial jobs like at the car wash and also at the restaurants as waitresses. How will these politicians deliver these jobs? That's another major issue. And what I've been reading online is that the politicians are saying they will deliver the jobs, but they're not telling people how, and that's why there's so much distrust in it.
Right then, so many people will be wondering how much the politicians really do feel the pain that South Africans are going through. In terms of their own efforts and initiatives, what are especially young South Africans doing about it?
Well, in the next few years, according to experts, that most of the jobs that will be created will be those from small-scale businesses. These people who cannot get jobs or employment are now finding ways to make their own jobs. So I've made people who are starting their own small businesses, like just selling in food stores or starting this. I've met people who are doing some design jobs and also getting online as tech goes higher. People getting self-employed in the tech sector. So this is what the youth are trying to do. But also it needs the country to be developing. And the country right now, according to the World Bank, will be developing at 1.2%, and which they say is not enough to create new jobs and will hardly sustain the opportunities that are available. In fact, there are some companies which are shutting down instead of growing some more.
All right, Ferdinando Mondi for us in Johannesburg. Thank you. You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Let's find out what's happening in the world of sport.
Many thanks, Sophie. And as you can imagine, reactions have continued to trail that verdict by the Court of Arbitration, which rejected Caster Semenya's challenge against the IAAF's new rules on testosterone levels. Former world #1 tennis player Martina Navratilova tweeted, "The verdict against Semenya is dreadfully unfair to her and wrong in principle. She has done nothing wrong, and it is awful that she will now have to take drugs to be able to compete. General rules should not be made from exceptional cases." But former 800-meter world champion Janeth Chepkosgei of Kenya has told the BBC, "I am sure it is the right thing because other people have been complaining. So I have no problem with the decision and I am happy she can still compete." Others have also been having their say.
Really sucks because, she didn't ask for that. She didn't ask to be born the way she's born, and it's born with high testosterone. How are you going to make someone change something that they were born with, at the end of the day? It's really unfortunate. I think that's an unfortunate ruling, actually. You really don't even got to really think about it. It's just, common sense, kind of. But it is what it is, and I guess they decided what they decided.
This is earth-shattering for her as an individual. She's been a world-class athlete. She's performed at the highest level. And what people have got to remember, it's through no fault of cheating or anything of that nature. It's just the way that her body was made. Unfortunately, this situation has happened. It's one of those scenarios where you've just got to take stock, sit down and figure out what you're going to do next, because I'm sure she's right now not in a very good place.
Football now, and the first leg of the second semi-final of the UEFA Champions League kicks off in just over an hour after Tuesday's heroics by Dutch side Ajax over Tottenham Hotspur. This time it's Barcelona v Liverpool. Both sides have won the competition 5 times, and for many football purists, it's a fascinating time. That said, Barcelona will, with home advantage, will be favourites tonight. Captain Lionel Messi is hoping to win his 5th Champions League trophy with the Catalans and is the driving force for the team. Barcelona have won more Champions League games against English sides than any side has won against clubs from a particular nation in the competition's history. But in Liverpool, they face a team that has not lost in 4 previous away meetings with Barcelona in all competitions. And forward Sadio Mane says that playing in the camp now is added motivation.
Wonderful, wonderful stadium. I've been watching Barcelona since I'm young and still watch La Liga sometimes. And all of us, for sure, because we are football players, we love to watch football sometimes. And yeah, for us, it will be... But anyway, we're used to it because Anfield is unique, to be honest.
Now, Cameroon defender Gaëtan Bong has signed a new 1-year deal at his club Brighton and Hove Albion, keeping him at the club till June 2020. The 31-year-old has made 47 Premier League appearances since helping the club reach the top flight in 2017. He put pen to paper on a contract extension earlier today. Bong has contributed towards 4 of the 7 clean sheets Chris Hughton's team have secured in the Premier League so far this campaign. Bong also came out of retirement last year and has since featured for Cameroon in Africa Cup of Nations qualifying matches against Comoros and Morocco. Finally, Tanzania's Nigerian coach Emmanuel Amunike has included this 15-year-old Kelvin John Pius in his initial 39-man squad for the Africa Cup of Nations. John, who is nicknamed Mbappe after the French star Kylian, impressed at the recent Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations that Tanzania hosted last month. Another youngster, Clario Boniface from the Under-20 side, is also on the list. Amunike says it's time to think of the future.
I think everybody will be surprised we bring in Under-18, but I believe it's time we start to build our team, we start to think of the future, we start to think of the young ones, we start to see how we can also integrate them in the system.
I wonder what I was doing at 15. Definitely not playing for the national team.
Yeah, that's quite obvious, Peter. Thanks for the sport. Thank you. Well, before we go, a quick look at our top story today on Focus on Africa. South African sprinter Caster Semenya says she will fight on despite losing her appeal against her sports governing body over permissible levels of testosterone in female athletes. That's all from the program. From me and the rest of the team, thanks for your company.